Somebody link me this over email. I want to take a quick peek. Matt Bernstein and Vigeland speaking with Mallory McMorrow.
Do you support funding to Israel's defense infrastructure?
Because I don't think anybody...
Wait, is this the one where she said everyone should have an Iron Dome? Like she just gave up on defending her positions and she was like, sure, fuck it. Let Gaza have an Iron Dome too? Oh, God. What's the timestamp on that?
should live in fear of being bombed or killed. I would look at how do we support defensive systems for Palestinians? How would we support defensive systems for Lebanese?
Should they get an Iron Dome too, the Palestinians?
Well, let's talk about that as a conversation.
Well, I mean, hello.
It's so fucking unserious, man. No one's even trying.
For anyone who hasn't been following recent left-wing political Twitter drama, or who doesn't keep up with the iconic drag queen Lady Bunny.
Look for 564? Okay, gotcha. 564? Wait, 564? That's not a timestamp. The seconds don't go beyond 59. What? 564? What?
Block Democrats from having a path at taking the U.S. Senate. They're spending, the Senate leadership PAC announced $45 million that they're going to be spending in Michigan, which is more than they will spend in Georgia, Maine, Iowa, Alaska, New Hampshire. So this is it.
She has kind of a sitcom face, doesn't she? Mallory McMorrow? Like a character on Parks and Rec or something? She has kind of that, like, you know what I mean? That, like, beady-eyed desperation of a C-list celebrity giving it their all.
So it makes sense that this has sort of captured the attention of the country, and we have a fiercely competitive Democratic primary.
You do. I should add, so people know, don't mean to cut you off, but it's like, depending on what poll you look at, which are coming out like relentlessly, it's like neck and neck with the three of you.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing, but your characterization is right. You know, what I firmly believe is that the Democratic Party needs a reckoning, that the old guard establishment of the party has really let us down. The first question...
Capital subsumes all which critiques it, man. Jesus Christ. Zionism subsumes all that critiques it. Cuomo up there in the debate stage. Yeah, I'm here to take on the establishment Democrats, you know. I'm here to bring in a new system, man.
I was asked when I got in a year ago was, would you support Chuck Schumer for leader? And I said, no. Apparently I was the first candidate in the country to say so. And what I know is that in Michigan, we have built a very different blueprint. So for me, I know that people want to put us into neat little lane boxes, and I just don't think that's how Michiganders think. We have people in our state who voted for both Rick Snyder, a Republican governor, and Gretchen Whitmer. We have people who voted for Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. This is a state where you don't have to register by party, and people tend to vote for the person that they like. But of the field, I am the establishment outsider, but with...
Jesus Christ. It's so... Sure, Medicare for all. Let's ask about Medicare for all. Let's see how establishment and how outsider you are.
Yeah, and I want to talk about some of those economic issues, namely healthcare. Gotcha. I know going into this, we said we want to talk about foreign policy and healthcare, because especially, you know, if you're representing Michigan on the national stage, then, you know, these are things that people really care about. So, Senator McMorrow, with regard to healthcare, you support a single payer option, which is different from something like Medicare for all or universal health care. I wanted to play a clip for you that's gotten some traction of you speaking about what you see as the risks of universal health care, and just ask you more about that.
Sure.
Also, you're new to the pod and learning that I don't have a producer. So when I say, like, I'm going to throw something up on the screen, what I mean is I'm going to play the video from my phone into the microphone.
Oh, that's incredible. So, okay, perfect.
You know, sorry, you're welcome.
Jamie?
Some people conflate Medicare for all with universal health care. But Medicare for all, when it's actually defined, is one singular government-run healthcare system that we are all on. Now, I want you to imagine what that would look like with Donald Trump and RFK Jr. at the head of it.
We can't have single payer because Donnie Trump would ruin it or something? So we have to instead have private corporations who are all run by people who are friends with Trump do it instead?
Emma, do you want to take this?
Yeah, sure.
So what does she even mean? It's like, actually it's reactionary to support single payer healthcare because Trump would control it? What?
So State Senator McMorrow, it feels like the implication of your framing there is that government healthcare programs shouldn't be trusted because Trump and RFK Jr. are leading them. Are there other programs, specifically healthcare programs or social programs, you think should be cut because Trump and RFK Jr. are currently in charge of them?
No, that's not at all what I intended. And, you know, why
Could you elaborate it then?
Fundamentally and firmly believe that we need access to universal health care. We need to get there as quickly as possible. In the state Senate, I have led on efforts to codify the Affordable Care Act on the state level so you can't lose your health care with a pre-existing condition. We repealed our 1931 abortion ban. We helped expand a program called RX Kids statewide, which is a cash grant program for new moms and babies. We've expanded access to doulas and to midwives. We've done so much because this is such a big issue. And what I know is that people can't afford to wait. The idea that we should hold out just for one solution, to me, is just not what I've experienced in...
Just tell me what you believe, please.
Governing. You know, the next U.S. senator would be one of 100 members. And the votes for a true single payer system simply aren't there. Now, there have been multiple states who have implemented state level public options. And
okay, public option isn't single payer, for one. For two, the way you get there is by being a fierce advocate for a good thing. Like, you don't stop supporting desegregation because it's unpopular in the mid-50s. The way you get desegregation is by fiercely advocating for it, even when it's unpopular. Democrats never seem to get this because, of course, they don't actually believe in anything. They'll shift their support for a position based on whether or not it hits the 50% margin, except, oh, wait, massive healthcare reform is universally popular with Americans. Democrats still won't take the fucking bid.
In those states, not only have they vastly reduced the rate of uninsured to next to zero, they've also reduced the cost of private health insurance. That is something that, as we look to how do we get to universal healthcare as quickly as possible so people aren't going bankrupt, they are not denying themselves care. You know, I am somebody who graduated from college right into the recession in 2008 wanting to be a car designer. So I did not have healthcare. I couldn't stay on my parents' plan until 26. Having that real public option, anybody who wants to opt into Medicare, regardless of age, can, while also ensuring if you want to keep your plan through your union or through your employer that you can, I believe is the best way that we can get to universal health care as quickly as possible.
That's not universal health care.
We can talk about, I think, the merits of the public option versus Medicare for all, but the public option would still be run by Donald Trump and RFK Jr. or whoever ends up being a Republican if they take over. So, additionally, the entire Republican Party is against Medicare for all and single payer. So
keep in mind, if you want to know what the future of a public option would look like, look what's happening to Medicaid right now. We already know what happens when the government runs a single low-quality healthcare option available largely to people who can't afford the better private options. We already know what it looks like. Removing the income limitations on Medicaid would open up the floodgates to enrollment, which would be prohibitively expensive, not only because the government's still paying market rates for the healthcare that they're, you know, paying for when you use Medicaid services on a statewide basis, but also because it would drag the average cost of those services up over time as higher quality, parentheses, wealthier Americans stay on their private programs, meaning private programs would remain the higher quality option and everyone else would get the fucking dirt. And the dirt would get more expensive, and we're already at like 100% of the US GDP as debt. So, you know.
Almost an assertion that Democrats shouldn't pursue Medicare for all or even single payer because potentially Republicans could get back into power and control it. I mean, that is the implication of what you said.
I don't think that it is. I think that's a mischaracterization.
How would you characterize it then?
Oh my God.
You talk a lot on the trail. and you want to make some jokes and you want to help people understand where you're coming from. This is an administration that has slashed access to mifepristone.
I say lots of things.
This is an administration who intentionally withheld SNAP benefits, even though we had the funding to pay for it in Michigan. That's 1 million kids who are on SNAP right now. I don't think we should shy away from the incredible damage that this administration is inflicting on government programs. Here in the state, I'm on the Appropriations Committee in the state Senate. We are having to backfill state Medicaid because they vastly slashed access to funding for us. The one big awful bill means that Michigan stands to lose 13 rural hospitals. We've already seen a birthing center close in the Upper Peninsula, and now women have to drive more than 50 miles to give birth. I don't believe that it's out of line to highlight, hopefully with some humor, we're allowed to laugh sometimes, some of the incredibly damaging things that this administration has done, while we are also advocating for what we would do if we get back into power, what we're going to propose, and how we're going to get there. How do you build a coalition to actually...
She's not saying anything, of course. Politicians, when they're like, well, Medicare for all sounds great, but a public option is more viable in the immediate term, when you then follow up with, okay, so if it was viable, would you support single payer?
Actually implement a policy that restores healthcare for people as quickly as possible.
I think the rub there is just that the framing kind of undercuts the idea of universal programs because the bad party can take over at a certain point. And, you know, I want Democrats to be talking about how government can provide social services for people. I think that needs to be a core part of the brand proposition. And, you know, another part of your assertion was that Medicare for all is I wrote the quote down, one singular government-run healthcare system that we're all on. Can you elaborate on that? Because Medicare for all is a replacement for private insurance with a single government payer.
Also, a public option would have more problems than universal healthcare. I fully believe that a public option in the United States would bankrupt us like 10 times as hard as we're already headed towards the bankruptcy cliff. I feel like we would hit that wall way the fuck sooner if we did. The problem is that every time you fall and scrape your knee and get a boo-boo, it costs $1 trillion to get a Band-Aid. That's it. It's fun. Pete, you can make up whatever bullshit you want. You can pretend that there's some kind of rational back-end process. The fact is that healthcare administration and insurance are hyper-bloated, and every time you incur any medical cost, it costs literal orders of magnitude more than it should. And if you introduce a public option, the only thing that means is that the government will be paying that price with your tax dollars. You just want single payer. You do not want to have to go through a private corporation, a private hospital, whatever else, and all the magic price inflation bullshit they do in the back end in order to get your health care. You just want the government to provide it with government services. It is mathematically superior to the other approaches. The amount of rent seeking in healthcare is fucking apocalyptic because it is an inflexible demand. The demand is inelastic. Private healthcare should literally be illegal. Yes, it should. If you as a child fall and get a boo-boo and your mother puts a Band-Aid on you without first signing a form through the government should show up and arrest her.
Medicare is currently, it's not government-run healthcare.
Sure, you're right. And I have taken that feedback to heart. We campaign a lot. And I do talk about this differently now so that it doesn't come across as callous. And you're right, a single payer system, Medicare for all in the legislation.
But that's not single payer, that's nationalized healthcare. Single payer is not. Single payer means there is only one place that you can go to get your healthcare, which is through the government. Or I should say, to pay for your healthcare. But even if you were being offered those hospital services from a private entity, they would have no choice but to pay rates set by the government. Like, the government would be the only mediator in town, if that makes any sense. I apologize if I mischaracterized single payer earlier. I think I might have slightly. The point is, if the only way that you can get healthcare is by going through the government has the essentially like a universal right to set prices because they're the only way these hospitals can sell their services, meaning the government can drive these prices way the fuck down by cutting through unnecessary administrative bloat. Oh, you can't afford to pay government set prices with all that bloat? You have to cut the bloat. The word you're looking for is monopsony? Yes, monopsony, thank you.
and as it has been introduced and sits in the Congress right now, is a single insurance plan that would by law eliminate private health insurance.
The public option, can you expand on how you would solve some of the same, say, enrollment issues that you see with Obamacare? A Medicare for All plan would promise no premiums or deductibles. It would create a single payer.
How do you accurately set prices within a market? There are plenty of government services in America and out of America that are capable of interacting with private price setting without needing a market. Like monopsonistic forces are not always like irrational or don't always lead to, destruction. I guess the problem is that we can't even trust the government as it exists now to meaningfully negotiate prices on your behalf.
Largest amount of leverage to keep costs down. That is why people want to go big with Medicare for All. A public option is an improvement, of course, on the private marketplace and the Affordable Care Act, but that would still involve premiums and deductibles. Why not go all the way to Medicare?
Yes, the VA negotiates prices, but Medicare does not, yeah.
Medicare for All.
Yeah, I hear you on the vision. I 100% do. And what I know after almost a decade as experience in a legislator is that you need to push as far as you possibly can while building the coalition of votes to actually get it across the line. And the support for a true single payer system isn't there yet. It just isn't. So for me, what I know.
So again, like this is gobbledygook. It's nonsense that only politicians believe in. So your support for a thing that you think would be good is dependent on whether or not others agree with you? That makes absolutely no sense. Do you only support the legality of gay marriage if other people agree with you? Can't you just say, I think this would be good and I will fight for it, but if it's impossible for me to get this outcome, I will fight for an improvement that is not necessarily as far as I want to go? But they don't actually support the thing they're saying that they're being prevented from supporting due to a lack of public support. It's ridiculous. Also, yes, single payer is, depending on who you ask and how you phrase it, quite popular with many Democrats.
I have constituents today who have canceled their ACA plans because they see their premiums have gone through the roof and they're just praying that they don't get sick and don't go to the hospital. Allowing for anybody who wants to opt into Medicare regardless of age helps us get on the path to universal health care. And I'm also somebody who fundamentally believes states are the laboratory.
Medicare for All enjoys very high support among Democrats, with recent polling showing that up to 78 to 90% of Democratic voters support a universal government-funded single-payer health insurance system. 78 to 90%. But still, we do this meandering and flip-flopping. It's been popular for years and years, but every Democrat politician has a gun pointed at the back of their head and a person behind them whispering, you will pretend that this is some marginal extremist position. In spite of its overwhelming popularity, everyone, they all pretend that it's not popular.
Stories of democracy. This is where we try things out. This is how our country was established. There has only been one state who's ever attempted a true single payer system, and it was Vermont. And they abandoned that 15 years ago.
Yeah, because you can't do it at a state level. It doesn't make sense at a state level. You need an overwhelming monopsonic force. You need the government, the federal government, to be able to put their foot down and set prices. It doesn't work if it's just state level.
They couldn't figure out how to pay for it, and they couldn't figure out the implementation, where we now have 3 states who are running public option systems within their states that have gotten us much closer to the goal of universal health care.
No, public option is not universal health care. It's literally not universal health care. It's definitionally not universal. It's crazy how America's healthcare system is so fucked that we've rewritten definitions to the point where merely being able to get on a healthcare program is universal healthcare. That's the definition she's trying to normalize. Universal healthcare, you mean where everyone has the legal ability to pay for a health insurance program?
So that's how I approach policy, is what's our goal and how can we actually ensure that we get there as quickly as possible?
Moving on, Mallory, an issue that's extremely close to...
You got to go harder. You have to put your... Listen, 78 to 90% of Democrats support single payer. Do you agree with them, or do you think they're wrong? If you could get that support, would you agree with them? Of course she doesn't, because she's a corporate pawn, a tool of the Zionists.
My heart as a Jewish person, as a tax-paying American, as a human being, is that of Palestine. I was actually just the other night at a UN commemoration of the anniversary of the Nakba in 1948, when Israel displaced more than 750,000 Palestinians who still don't have the right to return home. So when considering people who are running for federal office, people who could determine the future of the U.S. relationship to Israel and the effect that that will have on Palestinians, now the Lebanese people and Iranians, I know this issue is one people who listen to the show, for one, care a lot about. And of course, you are also running in Michigan, which has a large Arab population, which, you know, that was very consequential in the 2024 election when many of them withheld their votes from Kamala Harris and as part of the uncommitted movement. So I want to make sure people have a really clear understanding of your position. Also, for context, your opponent on one side, Abdul El-Sayed, he opposes all funding to Israel, and your opponent on the other side, Haley Stevens, is endorsed by AIPAC. Enough said there. So I wanted to highlight your approach and ask...
And you know, quietly filed a little fucking position sheet for AIPAC, which their supporters described as excellent.
Ask you about it. On your website, you write, quote, "The path to lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians lies in a two-state solution, with a democratic Jewish state of Israel existing safely along a democratic Palestinian state." You write that...
How interesting. A Jewish state versus a Palestinian state, where in one she describes a specific ethnic / religious / cultural / racial group, and in the other one she describes a national group. How interesting.
The flow of aid to Gaza, quote, "needs to be restored," that Israel's expansion into the West Bank, quote, "must stop," and that Hamas must, quote, "disarm and demonstrate a commitment to a peaceful and democratic Palestinian state." You also
must Israel disarm?
Support funding for Israel's defensive weapons infrastructure, you know, things like the Iron Dome. Is that all correct?
Increasingly, that's changed.
Okay.
And you even see Netanyahu now vocally saying that he himself wants to cut off relying on aid from other countries.
Not because he doesn't want the money, but because he doesn't think it would be reliable. What? Oh yeah, I'm in favor of us cutting aid to Israel, but only if Netanyahu wants to? What?
So I...
Of course I'm okay with cutting aid to Israel. Netanyahu's given me permission to have that opinion.
Support Israel continuing to be able to purchase systems like the Iron Dome, defensive systems, but I think it's in the best interest of the United States in reducing that aid and allowing Israel to do that on their own.
But I mean, as of now, though, your policy that you're running on, just so voters are like clear, is that you support sort of the defensive infrastructure. So we wanted to ask you a couple questions about your stance here. First, regarding what a two-state solution means to you and how that could affect your policymaking.
The two-state solution debate is something where I really do think that a lot of Democrats are kind of behind the reality on this issue. So I just want to talk in terms of practicalities. Where would you, in terms of like your ideal two-state solution, draw the borders? Because as you know, Israel's been illegally occupying East Jerusalem and the West Bank since 1967 in violation.
I noticed she stopped with her insipid fucking nodding at every statement.
Of UN law. And since then, 700,000 Israeli settlers have moved into the Palestinian territories in East Jerusalem and the West Bank and have stolen Palestinian land. So my question about the practicality of a two-state solution is, how would that happen? Would your scenario require removing the 700,000 illegal settlers living on Palestinian land?
So, Emma, what you're asking is, I don't believe the role of a U.S. senator. I believe that a senator should have a role in allowing the United States to facilitate the negotiation between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
This is something we only do with Israel, by the way. In literally every other country in the world, U.S. politicians feel comfortable setting conditions on or making demands of certain behaviors regarding the treatment of their own people. Like every American politician feels comfortable saying that China should or shouldn't do that to the Uyghur Muslims or the Hong Kong protesters. Like, can you imagine if a U.S. politician was asked, hey, do you think it's good that China's brutalizing Hong Kong residents, back when it was happening, still is, but you know what I mean. And they were like, I don't think it's my role to say that. Yes, the fuck it is. You're a politician. You're allowed to have you literally get to write and vote on laws which determine how we interact with other countries. The Leahy Agreement, that shit's your job. What do you mean you don't have an opinion? It's not your role to have an opinion.
That gets to a place where there's long-term peace, security, and self-determination for Palestinians and long-term peace and security and self-determination for Israelis who all live in the region and have to
some illegally even
figure out a way to coexist where they're not killing each other. I don't believe that
killing each other.
It's the role of a legislator to determine where those borders are or how it coexists.
It literally is. That is literally your job. The nature of our relationship with other countries is dictated by laws and treaties and provisions that you vote on and write.
But it should be our role to de-escalate the conflict. I do not support the Netanyahu government. I think that they have continued to push well beyond what is proportionate, what is rational in response to the October 7th attacks, in a way that...
How many dead children do you think would be rational and proportionate? God, I hate this woman. What a disgusting piece of shit.
It's horrifying to watch. I mean, bombing Gaza to be completely uninhabitable, the settler violence that you see, that while it is technically illegal, they are certainly doing nothing to stop it and continue to encourage it. And Matt, you brought this up particularly related to our state. We have a very large Lebanese population. 1 million people in Lebanon have been displaced. And I know a friend of mine who's running for state senate mentioned to me that his grandmother's home in Lebanon has been bombed 3 times, and that somehow she's still in good spirits about the fact that she is alive when many of her neighbors are not.
How heartwarming.
For me, I'm somebody, I bring a background in industrial design into how I pursue policy, which is starting with the outcome and then backing into how do you help facilitate making that happen. What I believe is that there is broad shared beliefs across our constituents in both the Jewish community, the Arab community, and frankly, for people who are not directly impacted by this, who are horrified beyond belief at the ongoing violence, suffering, chaos, who simply want the violence to stop and see the United States has played a role in continuing the violence when we need to play a role in ending it.
And I hear...
It's remarkable. It's just nothing. There's literally nothing there. It's completely empty and vacuous. If I am to take any joy at all in the collapse of the West, which is both happening right now and impending in much worse terms than our present right now, I will say this. At the very least, the collapse of the West will make extinct this brand of politician. They will no longer exist. It will be impossible to maintain this degree of aloof unawareness when the pillars are crumbling. It just won't be possible. The world will be too scary. The conditions will be too bad. It won't be possible to talk like this anymore.
What you're saying about you don't want to draw specific boundaries, I understand that, but I think it's important to dissect what a two-state solution would actually entail. Do you believe that should involve some sort of reparations for Palestinian land that has been stolen? Because increasingly, if you look at the map of the West Bank, it's being taken over by Israel. So there would have to be either a forcible removal or Palestinians would have to be crammed into even smaller and smaller territory.
Yeah, and again, I go back to the United States role, a legislator's role should be in helping to facilitate between the negotiators and something that allows for that peace and security for Palestinians alongside Israelis. I don't believe that is my role to dictate, to put on to the people who do live there what they should be fighting for their own lives.
I want to...
So no answer. Like all Democrats, her role is to be a non-existent entity, a power vacuum, so it can be filled by the wills of the of their masters. Corporate interests, Israel, Republican fascists. Every non-answer given by a Democrat leaves room for a real answer given by a fascist, which is why they give no answers.
Push back, though, a little bit on, you know, your role as a senator. Sort of, you're presenting it as like a little bit detached from the peace process there. Whereas, like, we know that Israel's sort of violent and ongoing expansion now into Lebanon, as you mentioned, it's only possible because of ongoing bipartisan U.S. support. And so I wonder if you continue to support defensive weapons infrastructure to Israel, how you see yourself as utilizing any of the leverage you could have as a U.S. senator in this situation. And I guess how you think, because like this two-state solution line, right? It's the party line for a long time.
Since the 90s.
And it just hasn't borne out. I think probably everyone on all sides of this issue could agree with that. And so I wonder how you are breaking from the establishment in a way that would materially benefit the people who, frankly, like my tax dollars are killing.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you framed it that way, because I think there's a difference, Matt, in how you asked your question versus Emma. One is the specific framework of the borders of the nations. The other is what leverage does the Congress have to help facilitate this negotiation. I would have voted alongside the 40 out of 47 senators who voted in the past Sanders resolution blocking arms sales. And let's acknowledge how stunning it is that a year ago, that number was significantly smaller than it is today.
Let's acknowledge how stunning it is. Why are you running defense for the Democratic Party? You haven't even been elected yet. Why are you, you're a candidate. Why are you a hype man for Schumer's Senate Democrats?
My views on this have evolved because the reality on the ground has evolved. It has been horrifying to watch how Benjamin Netanyahu and the far-right government have prosecuted.
Never Israel. Don't say Israel.
This ongoing war against Palestinians,
Not
against
a war.
Lebanese, against Yemenis, in a way that the United States cannot support. Simply put, the Congress...
Calling this a war would be like calling the Holocaust a war because of the damn Warsaw ghetto uprising. It's not a war.
Holds the power of the purse, holds the power of funding and resolutions, and that is where I would view my role in coming in is keeping an open door to everybody within our community. Michigan is a very diverse state where we have the largest Arab American population living side by side with a very significant Jewish population. And Matt, your question is the universal truth. I was in an Uber a couple of weeks ago, and the driver said almost exactly what you said, which is how can our country afford to continue bombing other countries when we can't pay for our own kids? That is where we need to step in and say enough is enough, and we need to bring this to an end.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned that how in Michigan you have people of different faiths, Muslim, Jewish people, Arab people living side by side. I think it's very American to believe in multiculturalism as an ethic, in that it engenders understanding, and when you can live alongside people who maybe have different views than you, it reduces the capacity for hatred. It's why we don't believe in things like segregation and apartheid, but Israel is an apartheid state. And, you know, when we're talking about who has the right to have land and to live in peace, I mean, we're recording this right now on the anniversary of the Nakba.
She just looks so fucking inhuman, man.
And the Palestinians have been ethnically cleansed since, you know, you could say 1948, but prior to that, from the land that is now Israel. Do you not believe in multiculturalism as an ethic for Israel and Palestine? Because a shared land would be, in my view, American, and also the solution that we saw in South Africa that could provide fairness for everybody involved.
Yeah, and it may very well be. You know, there are people who have worked on this issue for far longer than I have. And I always try to check my own bias at the door. I can't possibly understand what it is like to live in the middle of the Middle East. I can't imagine what it is like to have...
Example number 50 trillion of lived experiences and all that other woke one idpol bullshit being used explicitly as a tool for reactionary interests. The lived experiences of people are irrelevant. The opinions of your constituents are irrelevant. It is a fact that what is happening is a genocide. It is a fact that what is happening is apartheid. You can defer to the varied experiences of as many, let's be real here, representatives from Jewish interest groups in Michigan. As you can do that all you want. It doesn't change the facts that matter. Like the same shit Gavin Newsom did. You know, oh yeah, we called Israel an apartheid state. 5 seconds later, the Jewish interest groups reach out, and then he's like, "Well, nope, didn't say that."
My home stolen from me, to have my family killed, and
an appeal to lived experiences is and always has been an excuse to allow your opinions to be willfully shifted by the worst people with the worst opinions possible. You don't need lived experiences to inform your beliefs if your beliefs are informed by, you know, reality. If you just believe the things that are correct, if you examine the world and look for evidence to support things that are factually true, the lived experiences of people are actually largely irrelevant. Most people are stupid and shouldn't have voices to begin with, given voices only to test the patience of better men. As that one tweet said. Their experiences are irrelevant, their opinions are irrelevant. Do the correct thing.
I want to leave the door open. I think it's important for anybody who holds the role of a senator as a legislator to check.
And if you disagree with me, by the way, how would you feel about a politician saying they don't necessarily support gay marriage or desegregation, but are instead opening their door to listen to the varied voices and opinions and lived experiences of all of the people, white and black, gay and straight, in their state? Oh, I don't support the thing that's morally correct. I'm instead deferring to a wide, indistinct range of opinions, which, trust me, I won't selectively pick from. How would you feel about that for any position which you already have a strong opinion on?
Their own bias at the door, be open and objective. And if there is, and I've heard from both the Jewish community and the Arab community, that you're right, Emma, a two-state solution has been something that has been attempted for a very long time. We have failed to accomplish that so far. Perhaps a multicultural solution where people are living side by side is a better solution, but I want that to come from the people who live there. It shouldn't be the role of me to assert my views on residents of another country.
Yeah, I'll move on.
Not just jibber jabber. It's also like the objective opposite of the truth. Your job as a representative in the United States Senate is in fact to impose your will through lawmaking on other people. That is literally your job. Pretending that it isn't is just dishonesty. That is your job.
A little bit, but I think it's just, you know, to me, it's like Israel, who is the occupying power in this dynamic, I mean, as recognized by international law, does not want a multicultural state. Obviously, that is, you know, when they say like, oh, you guys want to destroy Israel, what they're talking about is a destruction of the apartheid system. What they're talking about is bringing in equality. And so I guess I want to stay on for a second, like how you could use your leverage as a US senator to stop this violence, which we all agree has to stop, right? Like we mentioned, you draw a distinction between Israel's defensive and offensive weapons infrastructure and currently support funding for the defensive part of that, like the Iron Dome.
Their nodding drives me insane. They're not human. They have been, everything human about them has been worn away by special interest groups, consultancy firms, lobbyists, and presumably the fucking Democratic Senate Commission reaching out to you know, strip whatever remains inside of her. It's nothing. It's media training designed to make them inhuman. Again, this is a position uniquely bad with Democrats because Republicans are capable of being evil while holding consistent positions. You can't be a Democrat and hold consistent positions while being the way that she is. You can't be nominally progressive while believing the things that she believes. So she has to thread the needle and believe a bunch of, you know, inane bullshit about how it's not her place to have opinions or whatever. Republicans get to be consistent because they're consistently evil.
I think a lot of people, though, might disagree with that distinction. and say that Israel's defensive capabilities enable their offensive capabilities. Like, you know, the Iron Dome allows Israel, one might say, to operate with impunity because they don't face the same threat of retaliation. So what would you say to that?
I hear you.
God help me. God fucking help me, man. God tests my patience every day. Every day is a test. I hear you and I see you. Every day is a test.
You can imagine this is a conversation we have every single day in a state like ours, where...
Every day, really. Do you ever resolve this conversation out of curiosity?
We have vastly different viewpoints on the right course of action in the Middle East. And it is the job to go in with an open mind and to listen and to make the right, most objective decision that I possibly can. And as I said at the outset, it is increasingly the view of even Netanyahu himself that he wants to be able to do it on his own and doesn't want to rely on foreign aid. There seems to be a recognition.
As my master Netanyahu said, he doesn't even need it. So maybe it would be okay to not give it to him.
That they are going at everything they possibly can and are losing the support of the world. They're losing the support of Americans. And I will always, my pledge is to always be objective. You know, I am not
fucking God
so tied to an individual viewpoint that I'm not willing to change my mind.
No, we can tell. We can tell you're not tied to any viewpoint in particular. No. Don't worry. No. We know.
And when the facts on the ground change.
I guess then to that end, why do
I'm sorry, I can't do that. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, I can't. Democrats don't even tell you they're advocating for good things anymore. They just look at you like this. It's like I genuinely can't do it. It's insane. I would know more. I would not prefer her to a Republican in the Senate. I simply don't care. These people stand for absolutely nothing. Genuinely, people like her are worse than Republicans. I believe that. At least the Republicans, in their consistent belief for evil, present a uniform political project that can be opposed. This is nothing. This is like the gray goo of politics. Self-replicating, nanomachines that do nothing other than spread the establishment consensus. She ends up deflecting from Gaza by asking Matt Bernstein about his family relations in regard to anti-Zionism. Wasn't it like 33 minutes anyway? Aren't we there?
Funding to Israel's defense infrastructure. What is, I guess, sort of your positive vision in supporting that policy? You know what I mean?
Because I don't think anybody should live in fear of being bombed or killed.
What was the timestamp again?
I would look at how do we support defensive systems for Palestinians? How would we support defensive systems for Lebanese?
Should they get an Iron Dome?
Yeah. Okay, when is Matt asked about being Jewish or whatever?
To the Palestinian?
Genocide?
Yeah, we went through this on our campaign. Based on the legal definition, I've said this, I do believe that it meets the definition. What I also heard in response from many of my constituents who had family that they lost in the Holocaust is there is such a personal, visceral reaction to that word that moves us.
Sorry, guys, they got the copyright. I guess they really are good at business. They got the copyright on the word genocide. My understanding was that it described behavior or like an action or a set of policies, but it turns out it exclusively refers to the Holocaust. Check the U.S. patent book.
Apart from each other. And when I believe that most people in both the Jewish community and the Arab community and people who are not impacted want the same outcome, why would we spend our time debating whether or not you agree with the definition of a word and recognizing we have the coalition who wants the same thing? How do we keep them together?
I think that the definition is important because of international law, and we're seeing right now the Trump administration and, frankly, the Biden administration was also a part of the degradation of international law and the rules-based international order. And, there was a Quinnipiac poll from August 2025. This has probably increased since then, that 77% of Democrats, over half of independents, believe that Israel is committing genocide. Don't you think that it's important to articulate that just to support international law at a time when the foreign policy of the United States, and by extension Israel, is might makes right?
I think it is important to listen to everybody that I would be asking for faith and trust to represent, and to build the coalition that we need to hit the same goals. There is no doubt that war crimes have been committed. There is no doubt that the pain and suffering at the vast expense of our taxpayer dollars, Matt, to your point, that we continue to pay for this, needs to end. And I want to keep my people together at a moment when so much of the emphasis is on how to tear them apart.
Yeah, I don't mean to be pedantic. I really, really don't with like the genocide label. But I think to me, identifying it as a genocide is important to, like Emma said, give an internationally understood and legal label to what is currently happening to a group of people. And to me, like anyone's feelings about that word, I think are not as important as like recognizing what is still happening to people right now, which is a genocide under international law, you know?
How does your family feel about it? How are those conversations going?
Well, you know, it
depends on the family member.
And it's tense, but ultimately I assume, you know, you're asking that because I'm Jewish, and you'd be right for that, because it's, especially intergenerationally, it's a tense conversation because people have, you know, different levels of, you know, Zionist indoctrination and also differing sort of proximities to the Holocaust and the timeline. But I think, though, the difficult conversations that are happening within my family are less important than the reality of what is happening to the Palestinian people.
So we've had those same conversations. My husband is Jewish, and though I'm a step removed, there are certainly really, really hard conversations, to your point, among generations.
It's all just conversation. It's not, you never arrive at a point. The money keeps on moving. The blood keeps on flowing. Conversations about Medicare for all, about single payer, about this, about that. Conversations while you're raped to death. I love to have conversations while I'm raped to death. Her husband worked for AIPAC, by the way. Did he? Interned for AIPAC early in his career. Wow. Classic. I don't want to do this anymore, guys. I can't stand this. I can't stand these people. The West falling is a good thing insofar as it removes these people from power. I gotta take a piss, then I'm gonna read donos, then I'm gonna decompress with some fucking RE9. Who's with me? Who's with me? Hoorah!